He did it. He did it again. CM Punk did it again and ejected right into my veins what is necessary for WrestleMania 42 to get back to where it's supposed to be. He did it again. Pipe Bomb 2.0. Now, in this video, this is going to be a short little recap. I'm not going to go into the reaction. You've already seen all the videos. It's Wednesday. It's been 48 hours. I'm going to give you my thoughts on one particular thing and where I think this storyline is going. And if it does, you heard it first. And this is going to be the greatest thing that's ever happened in pro wrestling ever. So CM Punk delivers a scathing pipe bomb 2.0. That's what people are calling it. Pipe bomb 2.0. I want to focus on one thing about this. And this has been something that has been circling around. Tess is back. He woke up from a nap. He ate some food. Tess, how are you feeling? How are you feeling? Okay. I want to focus on one particular thing of what he said because he said a lot, but I want to talk about where I'm thinking this is going and where I'm hoping this is going. I have been on record in my group chats. I'm also on bolognese duty. So like the meat sauce, everything is simmering right now. I got like 13 minutes before I got to be back in there. My girl is holding it down. She graced me with the time to make this video. I'm so grateful. Okay. So I'm on record. On record. Pro wrestling is always at its best when there's factions. So when you look at the Attitude Era, which people consider the greatest timeline in pro wrestling history, the Golden Era with Hogan, and then you have the Attitude Era with Austin and Rock. In storytelling, in film, books, shows, pro wrestling, storytelling genres of work. The hero or heroes are only as good as the villain or villains, okay? Batman is only as great as Joker, and Joker is only as great as Batman, right? So the greater the villain, the greater the stakes, which means the more that the hero has to overcome and right the wrongs, all right? So when you look at all the great storylines, all the movies, Star Wars, Terminator, Rocky, Hitch, I don't know, it just came to the top of my mind. Hitch. When you look at pro wrestling, you look at the Bloodline and Cody Rhodes. WrestleMania 40, with all the pageantry that happened, with all the people that were coming inside that match and being involved, the reason why that moment meant so much was because of the 4 years of dominance that Roman Reigns and the Bloodline had. The comeuppance of the hero can only be there if the dominance and the heinous and the bloodshed and the cheating and just the pure hatred of a villain as Roman Reigns was at that time. The Attitude Era with Stone Cold Steve Austin spearheading all of that and Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson. That era can only be as good as the villains that were there, which was led by Vince McMahon. But of course, Vince McMahon was not a wrestler, right? He wasn't a worker, although he did wrestle in matches and partake in some things. But he had a faction called the Corporation, which birthed the stardom of The Rock. Because before The Rock became the greatest entertainer in sports entertainment, he was a heel as the corporate champion, right? So he was the first puppet that Vince McMahon had at that time. And the reason why Stone Cold Steve Austin was Stone Cold Steve Austin was because he had not just The Rock, but he had the corporation, the system that he was overtaking. Now, I will also say this. The best storylines always involve something that's real, something that people can relate to. What can we relate to? Well, we can relate to oppression. We can relate to you hating your boss, you wanting to punch your boss in the throat. you wanted to give a stunner to some of your coworkers. We can relate to things not being fair in the workplace. We can relate to the man always trying to make sure that they stay in power. We can relate to that. So when it comes to Stone Cold Steve Austin and Vince McMahon, it wasn't just good entertainment, it was relatable TV. That is why what CM Punk said this past Monday really stuck out to me when he talked about The Rock, because he didn't just mention him one time, he mentioned him twice. Okay. He talked about his failing movie star career, and then he talked about him being on the board at TKO. One of the greatest travesties over the last 2 years that we have received when it comes to the WWE product is we haven't seen the full circle culmination of the final boss character. The reason why the final boss character that The Rock has portrayed over the last 2 years has been so good is because it's true. Not only is he the biggest movie star in the world, now, is he the greatest actor in the world? That's up for debate. But in terms of superstar status, in terms of just straight up being a actual star, like the most famous person in the world, you can't argue that, okay? But he is also on the board of TKO. So he quite literally is the boss of the entire roster of WWE and everyone in the back in Gorilla, okay? Why am I saying that? We still haven't gotten Rock and Cody. We still haven't gotten Roman Rock, which I think we will. But in this particular storyline, the thing that I am struggling with the WWE product right now is there are so many good people in WWE right now. So many good characters, so many talented wrestlers, so many talented workers. But the thing that's struggling are storylines. And my biggest issue with WrestleMania 42, if you would check the previous video that I did, it always feels like they are making things up in real time. It doesn't feel like they knew exactly what they were getting themselves into and they're just making things up. It doesn't feel like we have storylines and buildups that are culminating at WrestleMania. It feels like we're just shoehorning matches together to create a card for both night one and night two. Okay. What am I saying? What I'm saying is there are no factions right now. And some of you are going to say the Vision, but the Vision isn't a real thing, right? Logan Paul, Austin Theory aren't a faction. They're a tag team. There is no group division. Now, Braun Breaker is supposed to be cleared for action, so maybe he's going to come back and whatever. But to be honest with you, the aesthetic of Braun Breaker, Logan Paul, Austin Theory is not very threatening. Just going to be real. Doesn't feel like a faction to me. Feels very mid-card. Feels very, hey, these are the people of the future. Hint, the Vision. But it doesn't really scream main event to me. Where I hope they're going with this, and where it feels like they're going with this, if The Rock is coming back, which he's filmed Jumanji 4, 5, 6, whatever number they're on, he's got some movies in the pipeline, okay? The one thing about, like what I said earlier, words in order, how things are said are very, very important when it comes to entertainment and storyline. The fact that his name was mentioned not once but twice, that is not a coincidence. Okay? Where I hope that they're going with this, and if they do this, this is going to be incredible. I think that the best possible outcome that we can get, not just for WrestleMania, but for WWE moving forward, is The Rock coming back as the Vince McMahon type character for this era of pro wrestling. Why? Because it works perfectly. He doesn't have to work, right? He doesn't have to actually get physical. But when he does get physical, when he does eventually have a match, it's going to mean so much more. The fact that he's the most busy person on the planet, the hardest worker in the room, the character of being the final boss and pulling the strings and being the authority figure in WWE, he doesn't have to be on the show to be a part of the show. He can show up via satellite. He can show up via phone call where someone's just talking to him. You don't even need to hear his voice, but you know that he's there. If he comes back as an authority figure and he's building a TKO type corporation with corporate champions, my dream scenario of this is he's doing it on both shows. Because also, The Rock was mentioned on SmackDown and he also was mentioned on Raw. Okay. Very subtle on SmackDown, very clear on Raw. He was mentioned on SmackDown by Pat McAfee and kind of Cody Rhodes, but he was mentioned very clearly by CM Punk. Okay. I think where we're headed is we're headed for The Rock to create a TKO-ish type authority faction on both shows where both champions on both shows are corporate champions. Now, the next question is, who are the champions? There's a part of me that believes this whole thing with CM Punk and Cody Rhodes is all a ruse. I think what we're going to get at WrestleMania, and if they do this, just give me all the praise and glory, okay? I think we're getting a double turn at WrestleMania. I think we're getting a CM Punk heel turn, and I think we're going to get the Cody Rhodes heel turn. I think the Pat McAfee thing for Randy Orton was a ruse, and that Pat McAfee is actually going to turn on Randy to help Cody win. And I don't know how the CM Punk Roman Reigns thing is going to happen. Maybe Rock comes back himself and does this, but I think CM Punk is turning heel. I really do think he's turning heel. And here's why I think he's turning heel. If you listen to the last episode I had where I talked about WrestleMania 42, my biggest issue with Roman Reigns is I think he has the perfect aesthetic for a professional wrestler. But the thing that he misses to me is relatability and vulnerability. We can't have promos about how much he's going to smash people and about how much he's going to, I'm just going to beat you up because I'm better than you and I make more money than you. That can't be a part of the character anymore. The tribal chief title really only matters to the people in the Samoan culture. It doesn't matter to people that aren't Samoan. Why would CM Punk care about Roman Reigns being the tribal chief? That's not a title he can win. And to be honest, Roman's aesthetic with the family around him elevated the way that he looked to me. So I think if they create a TKO-esque type authority on both shows, led by Cody Rhodes and CM Punk, by the way, two people that quit the company to go to the other company to come back. Because it's interesting that both of these storylines on both sides are being told as if Cody Rhodes and CM Punk are the ones that are diehard WWE guys, but they're also the ones that also left the company. They're also the ones that betrayed, and Roman Reigns and Randy Orton are the ones that never left. So to me, it feels like when you read in between the lines, CM Punk is being very hypocritical. Very hypocritical. And to be honest, it's also time for Cody Rhodes to turn heel. It just is. And when he turns heel, it's going to be one of the greatest things we've ever seen. So I think where we're headed to a complete double turn where CM Punk and Cody Rhodes turn heel and become corporate champions on both shows, spearheaded by the new Vince McMahon of WWE, which is The Rock. And this is how we can get to Rock Roman. Somehow we can get to, Rock Cody Rhodes at some point, maybe. But this is where when I listen to CM Punk, I'm listening to not just what he's saying, but also how he's saying it. And he's getting the fans on his side, right? Lower the ticket prices, like calling people out, calling them Pat McAfee, like saying all these things to get the fans on his side. But what great surprise would it be if he just turns on them at WrestleMania? I think that would be incredible. So that's where I think they're going. Let me know what you think. Let me know if I'm crazy. Am I making sense? Do you believe it? Do you agree with it? Do you think it's something that could possibly happen? Because I really do believe where we're headed right now, I hope we're headed to a place where we have a new faction and a faction that just seems like they can't be beat because that's what made the bloodline so special. And that's what made WrestleMania 40 even more special was because we finally saw the come down of the empire. We need a new empire in WWE. And what great empire would it be as the final boss spearheading this era of being the new Vince McMahon? And I think it would be amazing. So, damn, I love wrestling.